minus 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey guys, episode 84. Welcome to the Launch Sequence podcast.
Mic check 1, 2.
We've got
Are we live?
we've got Montoya with us today.
Hey!
Doing a mic check. Impromptu mic check.
Thank you for telling me this time. Last time I have to apologize for the last time we did this because I was eating breakfast and never told me we were live, and I'm busy shoveling food into my mouth, and much better this time.
I don't know what episode that it was. Go back to like June, July time and see him eating his dinner, his breakfast.
Don't know why you're trying to sabotage my good image. You know, I've got a reputation here.
No, people know that you're staying healthy, keeping up with your nutrition. That's pretty good stuff. But anyways, welcome folks to episode 84 of the Launch Sequence podcast. I've got Montoya in here, obviously a return guest, and coming to talk about some interesting stuff. This is the first episode of a new year. 2023 is upon us. 2022 was insane, but honestly, that seems like a trend at this point. Ever since really 2020, depending on who you are, it's just been nonsense for the last few years. But we're happy to see another year come in. Happy to see another year of Star Citizen development upon us. Last year was another record-breaking year, and
How has another year passed? That's insane. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year, man. Yeah, it's we just kind of slept through it for the most part.
Huh.
Just on autopilot at this point.
I think the older you get, the faster time moves. Some kind of time dilation effect. We got to look into this.
Yeah, that makes sense because I started making dad jokes before I turned 30, and that's when everyone told me they should.
Oh, that's bad.
Happen. Yeah,
I'd be very concerned. When I started getting gray hairs, I just found that days went faster.
I think I've
the more gray you get.
I think I've got a gray hair somewhere in here. Somewhere I've got a red hair too. Just all kinds of colors.
I'd be concerned.
Oh no, that's the Irish in me. It's that makes sense.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll save that story for later.
Yeah, that'll be that's another podcast. Yeah. That's next time when he's eating dinner. Anyways, today we're talking about some big topics with Star Citizen. I think it's a great way to start the year off. We discussed the features that are here: PES, salvage, inventory stuff, all that jazz. But instead, I wanted to take a step back and look at some of the bigger ticket items, things like theaters of war, server meshing, the quantum economy, of course, Squadron 42, and some more. Wanted to give some context as to where those came from, how long they've been in development, why, and what we expect from them coming forward, and get just kind of a bird's eye view of the project going into 2023. So, jumping right into it, this kind of conversation always kind of starts with the tools. And we were actually just talking about this before we started the podcast. There's this idea that a lot of the work being done for Star Citizen over, say, the last 6 years or so is going to allow them to start making faster content, make more of it, make it more efficiently. Do you think this has been a good approach for Star Citizen in the short and long term, or just the long term? Do you think it's kind of made people annoyed in the short term, or do you think it's not working at all?
Yes. Okay, next question. So
Yes,
this
to
is
all the above.
frustrating. I mean, I think we all understand, and the Montreal office is a prime example of this. That the office came online because they're going to make all the planets, and we don't know. I mean, we know they're doing stuff, but as transparent as CIG is with their development, there's so many things which they say we don't want to give away too much because surprise factor, whatever. But trust us, we are working on many, many things. And so I believe it. I mean, I believe they are working on many things. And I do believe that they do want to save a lot of stuff as a surprise. And I know it's frustrating. I've gone through phases where I just have to know everything in the game. But I'll be honest, and let me know how you feel about this too, is that the closer we get to a release, I mean, it's close now, right? We can almost taste it. It's 5 years away at this point. I'm okay with knowing less because I want things to be a surprise when the game does come out. I want to be surprised by the lava planet, which we totally know doesn't exist, but does really. And there's things at the Montreal office, the tools that, for example, the rivers. We know they're working on the rivers too, which they showed us the tool. We click here, we click there, and bam, you have a river. And we know they can easily make that a lava river just as easily. So the tools are there. We know it's happening. And it's just a matter of how much they want to show us. And that's endlessly frustrating. Maybe someone in chat correct me with this. Was it Abraham Lincoln On this topic, he said, not on topic of Star Citizen, but a topic of creating tools. He said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe." I think that quote is attributed to Lincoln.
Hmm.
Someone correct me if I'm
It's a
wrong.
good one, but
But,
you're asking me
but
about
that's
actual
basically
history.
it. You
Can't
know,
can't help you there.
let me sharpen this axe for 4 hours to make the task of chopping down the tree much faster.
Right.
And the problem starts, not if it's a problem, but I mean, this is also the game engine itself with the Lumberyard. The tools they need to make this faster and more efficient. Abraham Lincoln got the Kickstarter. Thank you, One Prime. Thank you, chat. How you doing, chat? By the way, nice to see you there. That's essentially it. You know, it might take them a long time to make the tools, and we know it's taking them a long time to prepare these tools in Lumberyard. But once the tools are made, it will make things faster. And so, an ongoing criticism is, you know, it's taken them 10 years to make one star system, so therefore the next star system will take 10 years
Oh my
too.
gosh.
Right?
That one blows my like, why would it take another 10 years to make another one?
But we know that's not true. But the question is, okay, Pyro's coming out. This Q1, can we say Q1 next year? Hopefully.
Dude, I'm not saying anything anymore.
Yeah, let's just not say anything. But after
Sometime this
Pyro, we
decade.
know Nyx, Spider, Kellogg. Like, when will we see the next couple of systems? I guess the better question is, how long will it take them to make the next couple of systems? Like, we know they can procedurally generate a system very easily, but they'll need some handcrafting and some other things of it. But I think it's a question of, I believe they have the tools. I think it's the right strategy. It's just frustrating for us to sit and wait for it and not see it.
Mhm.
So I guess the real thing is how much they want to show us
Yeah.
and how much do we want to see.
Well, do you feel like the reality is that those tools are working?
I don't
Like,
believe. I mean,
do you have any
that
examples?
you've met with CIG devs, so have I, and I think they're very
I have not
talented
actually.
individuals.
I've never met any
You
of them.
haven't?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we've got to get you to the next CitizenCon.
Yeah. I plan on going.
But the CitizenCon in Texas, I forget who the dev was. He was working on something on the server related, and we're just hanging around. This is after all the event, and we're drinking. And he started talking just about server stuff. It's way over my head. And he knew his, can't swear, he knew his stuff. And to hear him speak about it so passionately, like he's explaining what he's working on and how this is going to help the servers in the future and how it's going to make certain things happen, um, they definitely know what they're talking about. They definitely have the right talent there, and they're paying a good amount of money to have this talent there. So I have no doubt that it's there. It's just a question of how much they want to show us.
Mhm.
And the answer is that they're not showing us. They're choosing not to show us a lot
Yeah.
because they want enough of it to be a surprise.
Yeah. I think they did a good job of showing it with the rivers. I think that was a pretty solid example of
Mm.
how they try to develop these things to save some time in the future.
There's no question about it. I mean, I think they definitely know what the plan is. Just the frustrating part about open development is how open are you going to be? I mean, that's a different topic. But they don't want to show too much because they want some of the surprise factor, and I don't disagree.
Mhm.
Uh, Imagine if we came into the game having seen, you know, the next 10 star systems already, knowing what's going to be there, knowing what they look like. Where's the fun in the discovery then? You know, the first time you go through a jump point, a gate, and you end up in this new system, but you've already seen it somewhere, so you know what to expect. It kind of takes away a bit of that excitement, in my opinion. So I
Yeah.
don't blame them for wanting to keep it under wrap.
Yeah. Yeah, they have completely stopped talking about Nyx. They started to bring up Nyx sometimes in ISC. I think it was like a year and a half ago. But
Mm.
they stopped, I think, once they realized they're like, okay, let's get Pyro out of the way first. Let's stop ruining the surprise.
Yeah, it's part of the dichotomy. You know, there's in Elite Dangerous when you're jumping to an unknown system, like you don't know what's coming up. Is it going to be a blue giant? Is it going to be a red giant? Is it going to be a binary star system? Will it be a trinary star system? You don't know. You're jumping into a new system, and it's a surprise. Uh, I think that's important. I think that surprise factor is going to be important in the game. So
Yeah.
I both want to know everything, but also I don't want to know.
Hmm.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on to let's talk about the obvious the obvious one here, server meshing. In terms of big
Mm.
initiatives that have taken years and years and take a lot of, I mean, server meshing is probably the top most important topic in Star Citizen, but it goes back. A lot of people have only started to learn about it recently, but when is the first time you heard about server meshing?
Sit down by the fire, children. Let me tell you the day that I heard about server meshing. I was but a young man. It's been since the beginning. I don't know. It's been forever.
Yeah.
They've obviously had their issues. I think problems like the speed of light are a limitation on what they're trying to do. And so I won't pretend to know the ins and outs and finer aspects of it. It's over my head as far as the technology needed. All I know is it's extremely difficult. And what they're explaining and what we hear Chris Roberts talking about how, the servers will mesh and everything will work together. Um, I'll believe it when I see it. I do think they have to pull a rabbit out the hat in this one. But if they feel it's possible and they have the talent on staff to do it, um, taking a long time is actually working in their favor because look how great the processors and CPUs and GPUs are looking these days. So it's definitely going to make things easier the longer they wait.
Yeah. Do you think
uh,
do you think they've
yeah, go ahead.
been very consistent since they kind of introduced it to us with their journey with the things that they introduce to make it happen? I mean, going back all the way to object container streaming, they were already talking about these are the things we have to do to make server meshing a reality. Do you think
Mm.
they followed a good path from there?
You know, I like to have an opinion in all the stuff, and when I do speak to someone at CIG that knows more than I do, I realize how much I don't know on the topic, and so I restrain myself from speaking too much on topics I don't know enough about. And the server meshing is just something which I feel I understand well enough, but I really it's a frustrating part. Okay, the frustrating part for me on the server meshing issue is that when I log in, and those of you who belong to a large org, even smaller orgs, there's 10, 20 guys in your organization and you want to jump into the game and the server's full and now you can't join your friends. Server meshing is essential in that part of you jumping into this game with all your friends. And the frustration I've had from, being in Test Squadron, which is a fairly large organization, is I jump in and I see, 50, 60 people on. I go, oh, I'm going to join you. Go server full. You go, well, guess I'm not playing with my friends now, And so you have to kick someone from a server. Everyone has to log out and log back in to get a fresh server. I hate that. I hate that this happens. But again, how far are we away from it actually coming in?
Yeah.
Um, you know, it's way out there. A year out, I don't know.
What was
Uh,
the old server cap limit? Because
we
before it
went
was
from
50,
50 to 80.
before 50,
Um,
what was it? Wasn't it like 25 or something?
I haven't seen 25. Chat,
No?
what was it? 50?
Back in like the 2.6 kind of days when we were
Yeah.
just around
Yeah, it's
Crusader,
50.
was it always 50? Okay.
I mean, 50 was rough, but even now with what am I seeing? 120? What is the
Yeah,
normal
I've
service
seen it
size
up at
right
like
now?
110, 115.
Even at 120, I'm jumping in. I'm like, oh, my friends are here, and I know click join, and they go, nope, server full. I'm like, well, here we go.
Yeah, and
It's tough.
you didn't have to go through the PTU phase of that when we were in queues of
Mm.
like 6 million seconds to get to get in.
Yeah, I
So,
mean, I think they should definitely give content creators priority in joining service.
oh boy. He's joking, people. Don't
No, I'm being serious about this. All right. Look, I am a valued content creator here.
stop it. Cuz somebody's going to take you seriously, and I don't need that kind of
Everyone should.
attention here. Um So
Uh,
that was actually, you brought up a good point there with your org trying to join in. One of the topics that we talked about before we got started, and one of I think the ones you'd probably have the most to say about, are organization tools. And going back
mm,
to the roadmap from, I think it was either 20, I think it was 2018 maybe. So after the 2016 kerfuffle, the 2017 not so great predictions, 2018 I think was when they laid out like a realistic idea of we need persistence, we need we need I forgot what else there was, like better wallets, we need all this different stuff, and then server meshing, and we're done. And then you could see them ticking all those things off the list. One of those items in there though was organization tools, and we never got them.
yeah. So I don't know what happened to that, and they weren't very clear on what the organization tools were either. I mean, I can kind of guess where they want to go with it. for whatever reason, that's all gone on the back burner. I think most of us basically are on Discord, and I don't know, a couple of orgs maybe on Gilded, to fill the gap on things they need to make things run efficiently.
Hmm.
One of the more important things is getting everyone together. When you run an organization or any group, people, doesn't matter how big or small, it's herding cats, right? You want to get everyone into an op. You go, listen, 10 a.m., everyone meet this location. Let's be there, and just getting everyone there. And one guy overslept, and another guy's busy doing laundry. Like, how do you remind people there's an event happening? How do you know when they're available? Can you reach? Is one of the biggest requirements I have. I have a large org. How do I reach everyone in my organization? I mean, I can ping people on Discord, but not everyone is on Discord all the time. And there's a fair amount of people who don't even want to be on Discord because they go, well, I'm on Spectrum. So there's a whole list of things I wish to have for org tools that, actually, I believe there was a point where we gave a whole wish list at one point. We submitted a wish list of what we wanted. And, there's been radio silence on that. So I'm not holding my breath for it. I mean, I believe it will come one day. I can only imagine if they really want to stay on the ball is to have a Spectrum app on your phone that you can basically message individual members, send a ping and chat on your phone, and use your phone to do certain things like that too, which would be awesome. But
It's all
yeah,
supposed to
there's been,
center around Spectrum, right? I mean, they
yeah, Spectrum
introduced
is going to be
Spectrum.
exactly.
Uh,
So,
they
yeah, go ahead.
introduced it back in like 2015, and the whole premise, I think it was 2015 or 2016, and the whole premise was that it was your center for Star Citizen organization, and you would have it on your computer. You'd be able to access it in game on the website, and obviously complications and development changed. But do you think? I mean, how much do you think that's hurting the game now that we can't say access Spectrum in game?
Uh, I think we've learned how to work without it.
Hmm.
I mean, all of us have Discord running in the background anyway, so it's not essential to our current gameplay. But it's definitely going to be more important as the game progresses and as we start being more involved as an organization, defending territory. I don't want to see this go the way of EVE Online, where you get a ping at 4 a.m. going, "Get out of bed! We need you to come protect this asteroid belt or
Oh
something."
boy.
There are some people who would like that. I don't want that, but there's definitely people who do want that level of control within an organization. And so I think Spectrum can work for what they want. A mobile app for Spectrum will do very well, integrated both into the game and into your phone or your watch or into your eyeball, depending where technology is at the time. But yeah, definitely on the back burner. I don't think it's
Yeah.
critical to. There's just more important things they're working on right now, and we've just learned how to use Discord and other apps for our needs in the meantime.
And I wonder if that's going to be a problem for them. If everybody gets used to speaking on Discord, to coordinating on Discord, to setting up calendars on Gilded, or to even going all the way to the website to do things like send a friend request to people. I
Well,
mean, you could do it in game, but if people are getting used to that,
yeah.
are they going to have a problem with adoption in the future when they do want Spectrum? Because they know they want Spectrum to be this sort of central
Will
communication
Spectrum be
platform.
able to handle the traffic of voice comms and everything we need? Also, is another question.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of people will want redundancy built in because what if there's problems with Spectrum voice or chat and it's delayed or it's lagged of servers? Should we just stay on Discord anyway because that's proven and works fine? So I think that is also putting in, I guess, a pause because they're trying to say how important is live chat, voice chat in Spectrum if everyone's using Discord already? You know,
And
consideration.
there's something to be said about having the ability to integrate it into your game. If you're in a voice channel in the game and you're talking to people, should you also be able to speak to people on Spectrum on their phone? Because that wouldn't you can't necessarily put Discord literally into the game in Star
Mm,
Citizen like you could for Spectrum. They have complete control over it. So yeah, there are pros and cons to both. I don't know what direction they're going to go. I always expected them to have their own complete solution, but like you said, the scale, the reliability, the redundancy, it's going to be a lot. What do you think they'll do
Well,
long term?
there's some very basic things I think we need, which can be done very easily. For example, org hangers. Okay, we have simply gigantic. It's not simple at all. We have very complicated, gigantic, or amount of ships in this game.
Hmm.
Now let's say we have, 50, 60 Idrises, and I only want people at a certain rank in my org to have access to these ships. How do I make sure that everyone at the rank of captain or higher has access to these hangars, or even certain areas on your ship? Let's say there's a new member of your org is in, and but you don't want to give them access to engineering. These are all org tools. You should be able to specify person at this rank can access these red areas, or these blue areas only accessible to certain individuals. It gets complicated very quickly. Comms, I think voice comms being a very essential one, tiered voice
Yep.
comm.
Yeah.
When it comes to big battles, you don't want the guys down the line screaming about everything. You want to have the commanders only. So where's the commanders chat? Is there a commander voice chat? Discord doesn't even do that. That's another issue. Will
Hmm.
Spectrum deal with that? It's very complicated, and I can see. I can understand why they haven't pursued it, but things like giving certain members access to certain ships or certain areas on ships is like a very basic function I think an org needs.
Yeah.
But it gets very complicated very fast, and I don't blame them for kind of putting it in the back burner because more important is to get a game out at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's always what it comes back to. And it really, that's part of their learning process that they've gone through, is that they've told us all these things. You hear it all the time. They've promised all these things. There's so many features, how they were going to do it. And they are
Mm.
learning the hard way now that, like, you should not. You just shouldn't put all those details out so quickly. It helps generate hype, it helps get people excited, but then it gives you this huge laundry list of things that might be possible and might not as the game grows. And the backers, the players are kind of just left wondering what's going to happen with this. I do
Yeah,
think
look,
that they'll have a solution, but
the path of least resistance for CIG at this point is just do what they're doing now and leave the org tools like much later
yeah.
once the game is out. Because honestly, even as the head of a large org, I don't even know the tools I will need because I'm not playing the full game right now. When the full
Sure.
game comes out, I'll have a clearer picture of what I need. So I've already given them a wish list like years ago. I gave a big wish list, but how much stuff in that wish list is viable? How much of it is important?
Well,
I guessed I'd need the following things, but I don't know.
there are a couple basics I think we could use. Like, at the very least, a separate list of people who are in the org that, don't just include our friends. So that when you do join an org, even if you're a newcomer to the game, you log in 5 hours, you've never seen anything in this game, you don't know how to do anything, go anywhere, meet anyone. It would be nice to have a group of people that you already know are on a list that you can at least hop into their server and be like, hey, I'm
Hmm.
new to your org, can I play? I think that would be very useful right now.
Yeah, so this is endlessly frustrating for me. We get new people to join test, and all the orgs have had a huge influx. The guys I've spoken to run other orgs ago.
Yep.
There's been a massive amount of new players coming to the game the past couple of months. So the free fly helped a lot, but also, look, Star Citizen's looking great.
Yeah.
It's definitely getting a lot of great coverage, and there's tons of new players coming in. And the first thing a player does is goes, "Hi, I'm new. How do I join you guys?" And we say, "Oh, like see the people in chat, just add them to your friends list and join them." Because I've tried that, but the server's full. They can't join you.
Yeah.
And so if the very, very first thing you're trying to do when you join a game is join up with your new friends, and you cannot do that, that's so frustrating.
Yeah.
So
And it
that
gives
ties
you
into server
access to
meshing
to
and server
Spectrum.
tools. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you would think Spectrum might be the game because you get complete easy access to that. But they need to make it much easier to join your org in game. That's probably the biggest one in my opinion, is that
Yeah, definitely.
you
It's
can't
the
join them.
onboarding is so essential. A good onboarding experience changes everything.
Hmm.
If it's smooth and easy, then they'll have it. But if it's difficult, like add this to your person to your friends list, then right click their name. And if a server's full, wait for us to do a server hop because we'll exit. Like, no, that's too complicated.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be click, jump in, have fun. That's it. But
Yeah.
we're not there yet.
So that's kind of a bummer that org tools haven't moved that far. But like I said, on that roadmap, they were before persistence on there. As somebody who is at the head of the largest organization, Star Citizen, it doesn't bother you too much that they're now going out of order with that, and org tools seem like they're in the distance somewhere. You're not too bothered.
One thing I've learned over the years is patience.
I get
And
that.
look, there's 1,000 things you need and I need and everyone needs. And the thing is that we might not understand why they're not doing certain things because I don't work at CIG. I don't know what they're doing day to day. But when you do get an opportunity to speak to a CIG dev or you visit the offices, it becomes clearer that they have their reasons for certain things. I mean, not everything they do is going to be the right move.
Mhm.
Um, but I believe when we do sit down with whoever finally and we get this org stuff out the way, I'll explain why. It'll make sense then. So it's frustrating, but at the same time, I think we just learn to live with it at this point and make do with what we have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then on to the next topic. This is a fun one. This is a crowd favorite. Theaters of War.
What? What's that?
It's this cool game I saw is supposed to compete with Battlefield. Yeah, it's going to be really, really fun. Then it just
Is this
kind
a
of
new
disappeared.
game? Is it on Steam?
It had a huge crowdfunding campaign and everything. It was cool. And no, where's Theaters of War, Montoya?
What is Theaters of War? Why is Theaters of War? I think, well, is it possible they just drop it?
I
Can
don't
they do that?
I don't think so.
So,
I
all
think
right. So,
well,
yeah,
I've
go
got
ahead.
you go ahead. I've got my ideas on it, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Um, the I like the idea, but I have some concerns. Like, even if Theater of War, they come out tomorrow and go, Theaters of War is here. Here you go for it. I think people will love it. I think people will play it a lot. And I think people will get bored of it fairly quickly. And the reason I say that is because I'm just looking at a game I jumped back into recently called Fallout 76. And Fallout 76 had a mode in it called Nuclear Winter. Now, there's Fallout 76, the game, and then there was a separate kind of entity called Nuclear Winter, which was PvP focused.
Mm-hmm.
And the PvP crowd loved it, and they'd go and they'd play this game. But the problem was there was no continuity between Fallout 76, the game, and Nuclear Winter, the PvP focused part of it.
Right.
Whatever progress you made in Nuclear Winter in PvP, you get a skin for a gun, you get a hat maybe. And then when you went back into the normal game, there was nothing really indicating that you had done 1,000 hours in the PvP part because nothing carried over. And Bethesda, I don't know how recent, I think maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, they removed the Nuclear Winter PvP part of it. They just shut it down. And the reason was that it wasn't getting enough people playing. Of all huge amount of players playing Fallout 76, a fraction were playing the hardcore PvP part. Now,
Right.
the PvPers loved it. The PvPers couldn't get enough of it. But the PvPers, the pure PvP players, made up such a small fraction of the total community that it wasn't worth their while to invest the resources, fix the bugs, and develop that part of the game going forward. Let's take another example of a space game, Elite Dangerous. Now, Elite Dangerous had, what was it called? Not Arena Commander. Was it called Arena? Anyone
I
play
do
Elite
not.
Dangerous?
I only ever
It
played
had
in
a
the actual universe.
CQC. It was called, I think it was called CQC, Close Quarter Combat, where basically you spawn in to this area of space on your ship with 4 other players or 5 other players. I don't remember how many. And it's just pure PvP. Fast paced. You jump in. It's like they do team matching. You match up in the lobby, and off you go. You fight each other. It was great. I thought it was awesome at the time. And slowly, I'd come in, I'd log in, and matchmaking took longer. And eventually, you just couldn't find other people to play with because eventually people just disconnected. Again, it was a completely separate part outside of Elite Dangerous. So I'm not saying this will happen to Star Citizen, but just from those 2 games, and I'm just using games I know, Fallout 76 and Elite Dangerous both tried this pure PvP part, which was great, and eventually died off because people just dropped off and there wasn't any continuity and progression from the PvP part to the main game. So I'm not saying Theaters of War is going to be canceled, but at some point, CIG is going to say, how much money is this taking? How long is this taking to create this? And what kind of longevity will this have? Will people keep on playing it? And for that, I'm skeptical. I think the PvPers will love it. Theaters of War will be great for some, instant PvP action. But is it worth their while in the long run to do it? I don't have the answer, but from the games I mentioned there, it didn't work for them.
That's a great anecdote, to be honest, because I hadn't really thought about it from the angle of, is it worth the support? I think it's a solid idea, and I think it could really help the game, but the resources it could take to maintain it do seem high.
So here's the thing: why have a separate PvP part if you can have the PvP part in events in the game? So Siege of Arson, Jumptown, I mean, very PvP centric. Do you need to have a separate game mode, or should you focus on making Siege better or making Jumptown better? This might be an unpopular opinion, but I think just because based on what I've seen in these other two games I've played, focus on the actual game and make something PvP focused in that game as opposed to a separate entity might be the better solution long term.
Yeah, well, I also hadn't thought about that. We are seeing that in chat too. People are suggesting that this is the best way to move forward with it would be to better integrate it into the live events. It, I do worry a bit that the live events, because Theaters of War is, as the name suggests, very combat focused. And I would be worried just from what we've seen so far. Dynamic events are very combat focused too, and I know that's because they haven't had the tools necessarily to really expand on them. But shifting Theaters of War development into the dynamic events would be a little bit. I would hope that they would still balance equally with other parts of gameplay besides combat.
Yeah, I think when Arena Commander came out, we were all in there, right? Here's some
Mhm.
PvE, you want PvP, click it, you're in, that's great. How many of you guys in chat right now spend a lot of time in Arena Commander? I mean, I jump in when I want to test a new ship out, but that's it. I never bother. And so I don't know if Theaters of War will go the same way, but I think it's a great idea. I love the idea of just jumping in and go, hey guys, let's go shoot each other in Theaters of War. Come in, it's quick, it's easy. You don't have to spawn in your hab, jump into an elevator, then take a train, then go to a terminal, then call your ship, then fly out of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
atmosphere. It's like, bam, you're in. So I like that. But just from the two games I mentioned, it worked for a while and then it just died. And they spent all the time and resources making something which is not used. I think that's the risk.
Now, one of the main differences being that in Star Citizen, you don't want to die. Like in I don't know how Fallout 76 is, but in, say, what was the other game? What was the other
Elite Dangerous.
Elite? Oh, okay.
There's
No,
no
Elite
repercussions.
Dangerous. You
I
don't want to
mean,
die.
you die,
Actually,
you respawn. It's not bad.
it's not as bad.
Yeah.
Definitely just don't fly without rebuy. But in Elite Dangerous and in Fallout 76, from what I can tell, death is not as bad. So in Star Citizen, part of the original idea of the modules was that they would be video games inside the video
Mm,
game. You could drop into a
good
sim
point.
pod and do like a quick
Right.
death match while you're in quantum travel on your ship. Do you
Right.
think that would be enough to keep them populated, or do you think it would still kind of lose interest over time?
Uh, good question. Um, I I'd like to think. Well, if even you go to Jump Town or you're doing Siege and you have a friend who's got a carrack and you can respawn there, that fixes that. I mean, I personally I hate the fact when you die that it takes so long to get back into the game, which is a good argument for Theaters of War type gameplay. But again, I think the resources they need to make it work are probably best spent elsewhere at this point in time. But I can't say whether it's a good idea or not. I mean, I like to think it will be, but I think it'll face the same death that Fallout 76 Nuclear Winter had and CQC Arena in Elite Dangerous had eventually. That everyone loves it in the beginning, and eventually it just kind of dies off when you spend thousands of hours to develop something which is hardly used.
Hmm.
Majority of the people playing Star Citizen are not PvPers. Even though the PvPers will get most of the attention and all the cool videos you see are mostly people doing PvP, I don't have the exact stats, but I'm willing to say at least 85-90% of the people backing Star Citizen are not in the game for PvP. They're in the game for other reasons. So how much attention are you going to give PvP?
It's a good question.
Mm.
It's actually a good statistic I'd like to know. How many people are interested in PvP? How many people are actively seeking it out? And maybe that's something we'll throw into our org
You can do some polls.
questionnaire. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll hear anything about Theaters of War in 2023? The cancellation, continued development, something about the Arena Commander team working on it?
So you saying it's going to be canceled? You heard it here first, guys. Space Tomato
Confirmed.
saying Theaters of War is canceled in 2023. Let me just go tweet this out. Hang on.
It has been confirmed right here.
I don't. What's the last thing we heard about that? I haven't. Did I miss some news
Um,
about Theaters of War? I don't.
basically, gosh, the team that was working on it at Firesprite. So Firesprite was bought by Sony. And
Right.
then about 8 months later, I want to say, the team who was at Firesprite working on Theaters of War, some of them moved to CIG and continued to work on the Arena Commander team, which I think was having work on the Theaters of War stuff, and some of them continued with Firesprite and went over to the, I guess, Sony projects.
And that's the last of it. Yeah,
That's the last I remember.
I
Astropub has
know.
some interesting
Expand
theories.
Arena Commander, and just expand the current events, Siege and Orison. Expand that. I don't know if it's worth their while and the effort and money right now to get Theaters of War out. Maybe they'll just leave it on the back burner until I hope people forget about it. We'll see.
The back burner, the wonderful back burner.
The back burner's getting pretty full, but
You love to see it. The back burner has too many
yeah.
pots on it. We need multiple back burners now.
But again, I think it's a great feature. I know I would enjoy it, but big picture, I'm not hopeful it has longevity. I think it's a great thing to distract everyone for 6 months, 9 months, a year maybe.
Hmm.
But then after a year of playing Theaters of War, where is it then?
Yeah, I don't know. The way I'm thinking about those modules is definitely different now. I've always thought of them as being a great place for them to. This is what they told us, right? That they would be a good place to test the combat of the game and all that kind of stuff. And the further we get, the more I'm like, you know what? Do it in alpha. Just keep testing that stuff out in
Evocati,
alpha.
PTU,
Yeah.
that's where we test stuff. Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to probably my most interesting and most salty topic of the day: the economy.
Why are you salting the economy?
Oh, gosh.
Economy's great.
Well, okay. So the quantum economy, it's like the last major pillar of the game, in my opinion. We have all the different professions that we don't really know about, but the actual pillars, the base building, death mechanics, server meshing, reputation, actual ship combat, all these things get pretty regular updates, whether it's CitizenCon, an ISC, a Star Citizen Live, somebody comes on and talks about it. But the economy is void of communication. And I feel like it's getting very loud how quiet they've been on it, because for as long as the economy is bad, trading is bad. And if trading is bad, basically nothing is fun. There's no value. There's nothing for pirates to go after for actual trade. There's nothing for miners to look for because it has actual value. There's no crafting. There's no trade routes being hauled. Security has nothing to escort. Like, we're at a standstill. So that's my rant.
Good point. I mean, this kind of ties into the previous comment about how many people are into PvP. So let's say, 80%, 85% of the people playing this game are into the mining or the exploration, not in yet, or the salvage or the trading, which majority are. What are they doing? Is there enough to keep them engaged? And the answer is no. What is the last thing we heard about Quanta and all that? Base building is a huge one. I definitely see once we get our own bases in, once you can build your habs or have it hab on a planet, I know I'll log in a lot more if I have my little hab sitting on some moon somewhere with my little ship and just to log in and fly around and collect food or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
Is a wonderful reason to log in every day for me personally. But yeah, not much about that. I guess it's just more important things happening.
Well, I mean, we know in base building that they're developing the tool for it, right? The Rastar tool, it's making work. They show us a couple of interface things. They've talked to us about it. The last thing we heard about Quantum, the simulation, is that the refueling, rearming, and repairing prices are being affected by the quantum simulation.
Right.
There's not really too much to go off of with that. It's hard for us to detect any of that since those things aren't commodities anyways. But that's the last we heard, and that was, I think, in June. Happened in 317.
So there's a lot to figure out in this topic, and I know they said most of the economy is going to be NPCs. So how will your actions affect prices of commodities? And we have yet to see how that works out. Now, this model has worked very, very well in EVE Online, where the players control the economy. So if you are mining a certain material and that material is needed for the building of ships, and there's a big war happening in some sector, and people need the material to replace ships which have been lost, that becomes a very profitable trade route, and that makes a game loop for traders and miners, and creates a whole bunch of, there's a trickle down effect of what to happen just because there's a battle happening in one area. um, Elite Dangerous also has certain trade routes that if you go from point A to point B, there's a certain item which is needed along that route more than other routes, which encourages people to go that route. But once a certain amount of that item has been traded, the price comes down, which
Right.
makes you force you to find a different trade route. That is sorely missing. That is a major part of this game, which is not in yet. And when that does come in, will create so much more activity in the game itself. Because once you have people trading, you have people coming to blow them up. Once there's people going to blow them up, there's people coming to defend them. It just creates more and more game loops on top of that.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
important.
frustrating's not in, but I mean, Tony Z definitely seems like he has a good plan. The question is, when do we start seeing more of that?
Right.
4.0, maybe.
Well, the last time Tony Z talked, that was before this past update. This was actually 2 summers ago, so that would be summer of 2021. Tony Z talked, and he said that they were going to get some quantum stuff into the game towards the end of that year. That didn't happen, but we did see it happen later in 317.
Hmm.
The next thing we were expecting to see after that was Bounty Hunter V2, which is supposed to use virtual AI. Um,
Mhm.
so that's kind of in the mid-tier future, something that we'd probably see next year. I think that'll be the first time we see it really shown off in game. But at what point do we? I mean, that'll be 3 years since they kind of started to introduce the
It
main
can't come
ideas of
soon
it.
enough. I
Yeah,
mean, those of us looking for a reason to log in, um, making money, I guess, is one of the most basic things. And if there is, what was the last event there was where electronics were? What was the event with the fireworks? Was it yet transport the fireworks or the electronics? There was some trade route which was making a
oh,
crazy amount of money.
then Nine Tails. No, that wasn't Nine Tails
Was it Nine
Lockdown.
Tails? I
That
think
was during
so.
IAE, I believe. Just
Yeah, so
commodity
I mean, I
prices.
jumped in. I go, okay, what ship can I take to hold the most cargo?
Right.
Like, I don't do cargo
Invictus.
holding, but I grabbed as much as I could, to go make that run. But as I was doing it, it stopped working. So much for that. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely an incentive. And if they do want more activity, people playing, then the sooner they get that in, the better. But, again, frustrating. Not in yet.
Do you think they've been consistent with the way that they've kind of told us we're going to not really have too much of an effect on the economy, but we're going to be a part of it?
I'm not sure they know exactly how much. I mean, I want to have an effect on the economy. I want to know that if I cut off access to a star system somewhere through a jump point, that it's going to cause, a decline in certain materials which are needed for something else, cause the price to go up. I mean, this kind of fun game loop with actual repercussions in the universe gives you a reason to do things. But if it's, as I said, that's going to be mostly NPCs and your effects will be minimal, well, we'll leave it up to them to figure out. I think there's a balance. They can choose how they want this to work. Um, I mean, Tony Z has explained it well enough, but again, I think we're in good hands when it comes to that, and we have to just wait and see.
I hope it's not another John Pritchett situation, which no, nothing against John Pritchett. Do you know who that was?
The John situation, you'll have to elaborate on that.
So John Pritchett was originally the developer who was working on the flight model and the hover model.
Oh, yes, the
Yeah.
actual physicist.
And he had some amazing ideas, some incredible designs, some great
Yeah, yeah.
stuff that was going into the game. He explained it incredibly. It all made sense. And then when it come down to it, CIG was like, this is going to be too complicated. We can't, like, this is going to be too hard to continue to do with the way this game works.
Hmm.
And they really
Yeah.
had to kind of start over. And I would be
So that was a
heartbroken
simple
if that
case of
happened.
like I remember he goes, here's the calculations for the thrust vectoring on this thruster right here on a planet whose gravity is 1.2 meters per second, and like he really went so far in depth. And then someone else said, well, why don't you just make, we're talking on like the Dragonfly or the Nox, just make an invisible big rubbery wheel. We'll give you the same kind of traction instead of 1,000 calculations. And like, yeah, why not? Let's do that.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it was a case of basically someone saying, "Here's the science behind it," not working as well as what the game engine could do. I
Hmm.
mean, remember, was it the Cutlass Black or the Cutlass used to have the engines which move, and the engines just go all over the place all the time. Like they need, like, here's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
we need 5 newtons of thrust in this direction right now, and the engine just swivel around and come back automatically. It made sense scientifically, but it looked terrible. And I guess that's the trap they fell into with that, is that here are the calculations to make every thruster work in every direction for every millisecond, but just didn't look good. So yeah, that was a I don't say it was a waste of money. I think they learned a lot, but
Yeah, and I hope
they
they
need-
learned enough to not let that happen with Quantum.
again they'll have to has to come back. They have to try it out. I think it's in theory what works, but then in practice, will it work? Will
We need to
people
get
be
to practice.
satisfied with having NPCs decide the prices of everything? Or will it be more entertaining for different orgs to say, we are controlling this asteroid belt? And by controlling this resource, it's going to make the prices of this or that go up or down. I think that's the more interesting take. But, up to them. They game at the end, and we'll see what they decide.
Yeah, I don't think they'll ever go fully player controlled, but it'll be interesting to see how much they let it take an
Mm,
effect. Um, Overall, I do hope we see something soon. Like you said, they need to test it, and I really, really hope that's. I think the biggest thing for me in 2023 is I want to see them do something about the quantum simulation because it's really starting to, like I said, the silence is deafening, and
So, what are you looking forward to the most on their announcement or the implementation of it?
I just want to see some of it in the game, whether
Oh,
that's the virtual AI actually able to. So the idea behind the virtual AI is that an AI out there will be able to have a profile, basically, with its likes, its dislikes. It will be able to run missions, do crime, and overall be tracked by players using in-game services. So if you
okay.
ping
So
a
you
com
want to see
array,
more of the actual AI NPCs going about their daily.
they don't even need to have the NPCs. I don't need to see anything. As long as we
Yeah.
are receiving missions based on these people, as long as we are getting um, pinged based on activity levels that are actually changing based on what's happening in the game. If there's
Right.
Jump Town, let's say Jump Town is running, and that increases the combat level of that area, I think I would like to see an increased amount of derelicts in the area. That's a sign that Quantum can actually fill in the gaps between our gameplay and give us more context to what's happening.
Right. Right. So basically, logging in and getting different things happening every day of more or less importance, depending on events in the game or
Yeah,
what players have been doing in the game.
we've seen it on the roadmap a couple times. They showed up on the roadmap for last year. It was environmental missions. These were supposed to be missions
Mhm.
driven by probability volumes. They got removed. I would love to see at the very least something in ISC about that, you know?
Well, I would write an angry letter to Chris Roberts.
No, 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 no. Not a letter. It's got to be a YouTube comment.
Or tweet.
Or maybe, yeah, a tweet, possibly a Spectrum reply. It can never be just a. There was somebody in my chat on stream the other day, and they were going on and on about how the game wasn't getting anywhere, things weren't happening. This is a bad thing, you know. Um, and I asked them, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why are you saying that in the chat? Why aren't you just enjoying something else you enjoy? And their first reasoning was that they wanted to warn people, to protect people, to help people understand that they're getting duped and they need to stop buying ships. And I'm like, dude, that's doing that in a
Well,
YouTube comment is not the best way to get your job done. Go make a
well,
video.
that's an interesting topic, and it ties into what you're saying here. I mean, you want to see this quantum economy, you want to see it come in. Everyone's got their own desire, their own needs of what they want to see and how important it is to them. Like for me, like the org tools are something that's much more important to me than the quantum economy. And you'll find people come in with very interesting demands of what they think is the most important thing. They go, well, I want to see um, the toilets flush. I
Fishing
mean, how can I play this game if the toilet is not
for
flashing? It's
my
not
fishing
real,
fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm using an extreme example, but I mean, everyone has the thing they feel is most important. And it's interesting hearing all the different. I mean, I don't. I mean, I hear some ridiculous things too. Like, I have bought this particular ship, and there's nothing for me to do with the ship. Therefore, this game sucks. Well, fly a different ship, maybe do something else. Nope. Like I came for exploration, and there's no exploration. Everyone's being duped. I mean, everyone has their thing.
Yeah, and there are good points to be made. I'm just sitting there flabbergasted at the idea that people think the best way to make a dent in it is to go into like a stream. That's just venting. But eventually he did. I pointed that out, and he was like, "I just want to see people angry." I was like, "Okay, well now you've actually said it.
Well, that's how
We
the
can move
internet
on."
works, right?
Yeah.
Like, what can I
Anyways,
say to piss off this person the most?
right. Sorry for that little that tangent. But why don't we move
No, let it
on?
out, man. Just let it all out.
And actually, before we do move on, I just want to make clear, because we were saying this, it is the quantum economy, the quantum simulation. I've had my rants and my videos, and I try not to do it too much, but there is the quanta is the name of the AI who are running in the simulation. Quantum is the name of the simulation. Well, quanta is, I guess, the plural. But CIG is so bad at naming things, and this has become such a confusing thing in the community.
Why do you hate CIG so much?
They took my ships. They didn't give me exploration. They scammed me. I want my refund.
I think there's a subreddit you can visit.
But
Let's go right now.
that's a gosh, what is it? A pet peeve of mine. It's a small one. Like I don't actually mind that much, but why couldn't they have just picked a different name? We got quantum fuel, quantum economy, quantum travel. Gonna have like quantum guns soon.
Oh
Anyways.
yeah, quantum weapons. I'm into that.
Don't get
Quantum
them started.
ammo. The ammo is both in
No,
your
no, no.
gun and in your target at the same time.
The ammo
Yes.
will be called quanta. Anyways.
Your bullet may or may not hit its target. You don't know until you fire the gun.
Oh,
Makes perfect
gosh.
sense.
Oh, jeez. Quantum boost it. That's another one now. They have quantum boost.
Is it called quantum boost?
Yeah, that's the other travel method. It's kind of like quantum travel, but 1/10 slower, or 1/10 the speed.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, besides all that, let's get on to the shining prime example of things that have been worked on for a while that we still haven't seen. Can you give me a guess at what number one might be? Without looking at the notes I already sent you telling you what number one might be.
Completed game?
Close. Squadron 42. The old favorite.
Oh, what? Oh, that's the single player game. Right.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. That was actually kind of has apparently something to do with Theaters of War. I don't know. They're both kind of like, what is that? What are you guys talking about? But yeah, Squadron 42 is, for those who don't know, single player game made by CIG. And a lot of their efforts are going into making that game. They're making two games right now, the MMO Star Citizen and the single player game Squadron 42. And there's a lot of controversy around this for reasons we will go over shortly here. But the first thing I wanted to touch on, Montoya, was that a lot of people actually approach Squadron 42 like it's an afterthought to Star Citizen, an extra, an add-on, something that really shouldn't be getting that much development. How do you see it, considering kind of you've been around for a while, and were you an original backer?
What are you saying? I'm old?
Well, when did you back the game?
1933.
Definitely old.
I think 2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, old
from the beginning. So yeah, I saw the Kickstarter when it first came out, and I was like, well, I don't want to back a game from a Kickstarter because what if it fails? You lose your money. So I didn't back it. Was it 2012? I waited almost a year later to see how the Kickstarter went first, and once I saw that it went okay, and there were still funds coming in and people all hyped about it, then I came in after that. And I actually had to go back to the Kickstarter before we start this video now to refresh my memory to see what they were saying about Squadron 42. And Squadron 42 was pitched, like as the join the French Legion and fight to save humanity by joining the 42nd Squadron. So it was pitched in the original Kickstarter. But for me personally, I just glanced over that at the Kickstarter. I was like, space game. There's going to be like a big PU type thing. And I backed. And the fact that there was Squadron 42 also was not something that I was overly, I guess, I didn't focus on that. That wasn't my focus. So I don't know how many people now are jumping in with the picture like I'm backing Star Citizen because I'm just so excited about Squadron 42. People right now are coming in because they want to get a spaceship, they want to come in, they want to fly and shoot things and blow things up. So Squadron 42, I think for a lot of people, a lot of new backers is more of an afterthought. But for a lot of the original Kickstarter backers, it was probably one of the main reasons.
Right.
Could be wrong.
Well, that kind of brings up the whole disagreements that people have. Some people believe it's just doesn't matter, and some people are that's literally the whole reason they're here. Do you think they've done a poor job of setting those expectations for people, not really letting Star Citizen backers know what's going on with the game behind the game?
Well, this comes back to how much information you want to release. I think the idea of Squadron 42 coming out and then that being your segue into the PU is the correct way to do it. I think the great example, kind of a close example, would be GTA, right? You play GTA story mode, you get a feel for the characters, the setting, the city, and then once you've done the story mode, you jump into the multiplayer part of it. Well, you don't have to, but it gives the multiplayer a lot more meaning, in my opinion. So definitely in the universe of Star Citizen, coming straight to the PU is cool, but it'll make so much more sense and add so much more flavor if you come in after you've played Squadron 42. Excuse me.
Right.
So I definitely think I like the idea of Squadron 42 being the segue into the PU. I agree with it. But I guess the question also is, is this worth the delays? How happy is everyone about Squadron 42 or the lack of information about Squadron 42? But again, how much do you want to know? If tomorrow they come out and go, here is a 3-hour video showing you everything we have, will you rush out and watch it? I know I will, but will it be the right thing to do?
Yeah. I think the funniest part about Squadron 42 is how it's set in the lore at a certain time. I think it's 2945 or 2946. Um, and they know it will take place at that time in the lore, but Star Citizen's lore continues. So now we're in 2952 going into 29 or we're in 2953 because we're filming this in sorry everybody, we're filming this before the new year. But like we're in
Mm.
2953, so every year Star Citizen takes longer. We're extending the time between Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, and I wonder how
No,
that's going
good
to like
point.
complicate their storytelling process because of that.
Never considered that. I mean, they can always change it.
They could, yeah, they could. It's easy
Yeah,
enough.
definitely will. But I mean, we are due for a vertical slice on that. It's been what? When's the last time we answered the call? 2016?
Yeah.
We're definitely due.
So the vertical slice was a while ago, and that goes back to the idea: is it an afterthought because we don't hear about it at all, or is it actually super important and that's why we don't hear about it at all? And I mean, most people I think know the answer to that, but what do you like? What's the reasons for this game in your opinion? Why are they holding it to such high regard?
Majority of people who are backing, like my circle of friends outside Star Citizen who are gamers, don't want to back the game. They go, they keep asking me like, how's that game coming along? Every couple of years. And I go, it's coming. There's a patch and you can do this and that. They're not interested. They want to know when the game is released.
Right.
Normal people will buy a game on release and then play it. So majority of normal people coming into Star Citizen having to go through Squadron 42 is essential because it's a complicated game. Do you know how many keys you have to push to take off from the hangar, or even to get to your hangar? Like to wake up in the hab, go to the terminal, get your ship, jump on the train, take the elevator, walk to there, get onto your ship, push buttons to make this call the comms, make them open the hangar doors. It's crazy. And you need a game to run you through that, at least a tutorial level in the game, right? The Squadron 42 will essentially be that tutorial for the PU. And in that sense, it is essential for that. And as I said, majority of my friends who don't back the game right now, um, it's so beneficial for them to come into Star Citizen by playing Squadron 42 first and
You th-
then be released in the PU after that. So I think it's an essential part, not only for the tutorial part of the game, understanding how it works, but understanding the lore, understanding why some ships are cooler than other ships. Because you come into the game right now, like why is the Esperia brand, more expensive than non-alien brand? Is there a reason? Is it because it looks cooler, or maybe you don't think it's cool? Like all that will be established in the game itself as you play Squadron 42. So I do believe it's an essential part of the experience. But obviously, where is it? We know Chris Roberts moved everyone to Manchester to work under one roof so he can push it out faster. But we are due a vertical slice. We are due something very, very soon because patience is running out
Yeah.
for so many people on that
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, it is. Um, do you think that that could be just tying kind of understanding of Star Citizen to another game, a single player cinematic game that a lot of MMO players wouldn't be into? You think that could be a mistake?
Yeah, well, I got to speak from my opinion of it. Like, I think for me, it's the right choice. But I know, as you said, there's plenty of MMO players, especially PvP guys, who don't care. Like, here's the lore. You see, the Banu were first encountered in this year through this exploration. Like, no, I don't care. Like, I want to shoot things. They don't care about that at all. So there'll definitely be a segment of people who do that. For me personally, I think it's a great idea. But I mean, not everyone agrees with that. Some people couldn't care less about Squadron 42.
Yeah, a lot of people.
And a lot of people are blaming Squadron 42 for the delays in Star Citizen itself, which is also partly true.
Hmm.
But I do think it's an essential part and experience of the game. It's a critical part of it for me personally.
Hmm.
It's something I will enjoy. Hopefully, it doesn't suck. But
Yeah.
it is critical, in my opinion. Feel free to disagree.
5 years ago, we saw the Squadron 42 vertical slice, and this was our best look at the game thus far. This is 2017, so I guess yeah, it's about end of 2017, I believe we saw it. That's 5 years ago from here, December. Um, we have seen so much. I mean, the timeline of this game is. I can't wait to get a documentary that actually tells what went down because it's confusing. 5 years ago,
Mm.
we saw a pretty good looking vertical slice of a level in that game with all of the differences in development from inventory systems to scanning to like just everything they could have done. How much do you think that vertical slice has changed since then? Do you think we're looking at a different kind of game, or did they mostly just
Well,
work on other parts of the game and polish that
I
up?
think it's safe to say that the story, the story they planned is initially the same. But the problems they've run into, the most obvious issue I think they've run into is essentially the combat mechanics and the flight model, because the flight model we saw in 2017 is very different from the flight model we see now. And so, if part of your mission in Squadron 42 is jump into your Gladius and defend this carrier from attack from these ships, and the flight model was a certain way then, but now the weapons have changed, the armor penetration of ballistics have changed, the laser weapons, the shields have changed. It changes that battle, right? So instead of you battling with 5 NPCs, now that's 3 NPCs, and the change. Who knows the effects it has? So the frustrating part of this for both us and CIG definitely is when they make a change in the PU based upon player feedback and ballistics and laser penetration and shields and that. How does that affect the game at Squadron 42? Because it's supposed to be seamless, right? So I think it's a dangerous spiral they've got into, that changes that take place in the PU have to go into Squadron 42. And then if they change something in Squadron 42 to match the story or make some battle work out better that you're fighting in Squadron 42, that's to match your experience in the PU now. And I think they're stuck in this kind of loop where one change here has, a whole bunch of trickle down effects on other aspects of the game. Um, I feel that Squadron 42 is a big reason for the delays. That changes made in the PU, they'll hire someone, and we know this happens. They'll hire a dev for whatever aspect. And the dev will go, "You've done things this way, and I feel if you do things this way, it will be better." Chris Roberts get called into a meeting. They go, "Damn, the guy's right.
Yep.
We have to make these changes," and so they make the change in the PU. But now, if we make the change in the PU, how does it affect something in Squadron 42? Well, now that team has to come in and talk about it and make the change. So I think they're stuck in this constant loop of here's how we improve things, and now it's going to affect 1,000 other things. So yeah, frustrating. But at the end of the day, when something does come out, I mean, Citizen Con is planned. If we don't see some sort of major announcement of vertical slice in CitizenCon 2023, there'll be riots at Port Olisar.
They'll just finally take Port Olisar out of the game.
They
Like, you
can do
guys
that
don't
too.
get us anymore.
Which they
Um,
will do.
so you think it'll be like the same major hits when it comes to like the vertical slice, for instance, but things like gameplay will definitely be different.
The how Squadron 42 affects the gameplay?
How the vertical slice may have changed since the last time we saw it.
Well, again, the story's the same, but
Yeah,
yeah, the mechanics have changed. Flight mechanics have changed. Weapons have changed.
I
There's a
can
whole bunch of balancing.
I can
So
imagine
yeah,
the segment when you had to turn on the lights and get the elevator running, that they would gladly tie resource management into stuff like that.
yeah, it's a. I know that probably regret this whole idea of having the single player and PU thing happening.
Be connected. Yeah. I think having
Yeah.
the single player game be like a dumbed down version would have been good. It is kind of crazy to try and keep feature parity between the two,
Mm.
because like Star Citizen's not a combat game.
They, you know, if they had to start today, if they had the current engine and the current assets and go, we're going to make this game right now. They were just taking the PU and like put like a separate kind of arena commander mode and go, here's the game mode of it and be done. But I think the idea was good, and I think the execution has been extremely difficult
So you don't
because
think
so much of it. Yeah.
that Squadron is the big goal for them? You think it's Star Citizen?
No, Squadron is the selling feature.
Oh,
Again, majority of people who will be backing this game are not backing it because they're PvPers. There's a lot of PvPers who like the game, love it, but majority of the people who will be backing Star Citizen are coming because there's exploration and there's trade. There's 1,000 things to do. Keep in mind also that Bethesda's Starfield is going to bring in a whole new generation of players into the whole space genre.
yeah.
And all these people playing Starfield are going, what's the next game I can play? Squadron 42 will be that game. So they definitely have to cater to that audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris loves Squadron. I don't, like you. I didn't know Chris Roberts before I backed this game. I hadn't played his other games, but if there's one thing I've learned about him over the years, it's that he is a director at heart and he loves a nice cinematic set piece. And so Squadron, in my opinion, is his magnum opus. It's the thing that he wants to see release.
Right.
It's what Star Citizen is here to support. So I'll be excited when we do finally see it. Of course, there are going to be episode 2 and 3, but at least we will have that first one done, which would be just huge for the company, for the game to have some more validity to it. And I think for the development, because we would have a lot of just kind of a lot of, I think, pressure off the devs.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely that. They have to deliver on that. And when we backed this game in 2013, we were coming off Battlestar Galactica,
Ooh,
which was an awesome show.
that was great.
And we were all excited to recreate Battlestar Galactica in this game. And Chris Roberts came along at the perfect time. He goes, yeah, I'm going to give you the whole cinematic experience. Here's a Bengal carrier and it's being attacked, So he was the right place, right time for that. And, it's been 10 years, but a lot of us still want to see that.
Hmm.
I still want my Battlestar Galactica experience in this cinematic game, which I have no doubt they can deliver, but so frustrating on the silence of it. I can only hope that we do see it this year. And fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've all been duped.
Looking at this is a kind of a topic we've danced around with Squadron 42, but in the grand plan of Star Citizen as a project, do you see Star Citizen taking more of the focus after that first episode of Squadron comes out? Do you think Squadron will always be kind of where they put most of their efforts? What do you think is going to happen in the next couple of years as hopefully we get to see Squadron 42 release?
If this all pans out the way we're expecting, Squadron 42 being the launch pad into the PU itself uh, gives so much background and lore and meaning to everything you're going to do. So, at some point in Squadron 42, you come across an alien artifact. Where is the artifact from? can you, once you go into the PU, find the origins of it, like some old alien species which is extinct at some star system. This is going to be your drive. So it's definitely important. Um, it's, I don't want to say it's critical, but it's definitely going to be a very important aspect to all of this.
Squadron, you're
And
saying?
yes, yeah,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Star Citizen will end up being more important in the future, but Squadron's definitely got a job to do right now.
Well, again, it's going to come down to, well, that's the thing. But the seamless transition from Squadron 42 is the single player game to the PU itself. I don't have stats, but how many people play GTA story mode versus how many people play GTA online mode? That'll be an interesting stat to see, but it's kind of similar in that sense. There's the story mode and there's the online mode,
Mhm.
which comes together. So you're right. The PU part is going to be bigger because it's just once you've done that, you come into it. As much as
Yes.
I hate the delays, that I think it's still the right way. I think it will be
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. They
Yeah.
they both kind of need each other. But like many people say, everyone is going to play Squadron 42. They'll play it once, twice, maybe three times, and then they'll put it down and go into the PU where there's
Yeah.
always content generating itself. So it's much more
Well, if it
long
does
term.
this right, it's a seamless transition over. I mean, you collect chips, you get ranks in Squadron 42, and that carries over into the PU itself. Um, I think it's great.
That would be
But
cool.
how long?
Yeah.
How long
That's the
must we
last
wait?
question. You say you really want to see something in 2023 and you think there's going to be riots if we don't. Um,
I
realistically
said there'd be riots
speaking,
this year in 2022.
ah,
So the riots haven't happened. But look, with everyone at Manchester, being moved to Manchester to work under one roof, and with the delays we've seen so far, they got to produce. We have to see something soon. I keep on saying that, but they do. They
I
feel the
think
pressure.
I think that expansion means that they're expecting a lot of money soon. So, if they
Mm.
want to open up 1,000 jobs in the area, have a new office in Manchester and Frankfurt, do something new in Texas, like they're going to need an influx of cash, and I think they are banking on Squadron 42, which is good. It's also a little nerve-wracking, but we'll see what happens.
I think it'll happen. As I said, my friends outside of the Star Citizen bubble will only back this game once it's out, and so Squadron 42 will be their introduction to it. I think they'll definitely see enough bank from that. But I mean, they're not struggling for money. Look at this year's been great. I
Yeah,
can only see this continuing. There will come a year where they don't make as much, but it hasn't happened yet. We'll see. Maybe it's 2023.
we will see. What do you think is going to be I guess what are you excited to see in 2023? Like you said, your friends aren't going to come in here until the game is launched, but there are a lot of good reasons
Mm.
to join Star Citizen for people at every single update. Do you think we're going to see anything big that really boosts the visibility of this game
I
this
think
year?
Starfield, the irony of it, uh, tons of Bethesda fans all dying for the next RPG from Bethesda. And when Starfield comes out and they get a taste of the space sim genre, the next step up from that is Star Citizen. So I do think that Starfield brings a lot of attention to Star Citizen.
It
And
is
so
kind
it might
of
be another record year because of that.
it is kind of it's it's crazy how starved the gaming industry, the market really has been of like a good first person expansive experience. We had the Outer Wild or no, yeah, Outer
Outer
Worlds.
Worlds? Yeah.
Yeah, I always get confused between those two. We had Outer Worlds, which was I'd say like a double A game, not bad. Mass Effect Andromeda didn't do very good. Starfield seems like the first to really hit that in a while, and I do think that will help bring some people in. Have you
Mm.
seen like the subreddit for Starfield or the questions people ask, and you're like, you might be interested in Star Citizen, but you just wait. I'm not going to say, because you know how that conversation's going to go.
It's like a drug, you have a little taste. Well, I have something else you might want to try over here,
Yeah. They're like, oh,
like
man.
all the Star Citizen backers are now become like these drug dealers for space sims.
I mean, they say things like, can you imagine like jumping out of a spaceship and flying into another one and the gravity kicks in? I'm like, my man.
Really? They've been saying that? Yeah. Yeah, they'll find themselves making their way to Star Citizen, which is the interesting part of it. So I'm curious to see what the funding is going to be like as a result of assuming Starfield's successful. Well, look, let's be honest, it's Bethesda. The launch is going to be atrocious. The game will be buggy. People will cry and say how it's ruined their lives. And then a couple of months later, everyone will be happy. So
Yeah.
after that's all done, I think they'll find their way to Star Citizen.
It's a single player RPG. It won't have the exact crossover to something like Star Citizen, but I do think there's going to be a pretty decent percentage of people who are interested in finding, like you said, other experiences like that, and we'll see them in Star Citizen. I'm interested. I'm excited to see that. If any of you in the future are watching this, say hi.
Hello, future Starfield players. It's a pleasure having you.
I'm excited.
We
for
predicted this, yes.
Anyways, I think that's a good place for us to wrap things up today. Like I said, just wanted to touch on some of the bigger topics, and I think we touched on some pretty big ones here today. There's obviously plenty more we could be talking about, but well, there's always another episode.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure. And am I a first guest of 2023?
You are. This is our first show of the new year.
The honor.
Yeah.
You see?
Thank you. Thank you for coming
Most
on.
important one right in the beginning of the year, as always.
Now
Yeah.
give everybody some big inspirational words to drive them through the rest of the year. All the pressure's on you.
Patience is no. We have no patience. Give us what we're owed, CIG.
There it is. And apply that to all parts of your life. And you will find success and happiness.
Go get it. Get what you're owed. That's 2023 for you.
All right, man. Was there anything else that you wanted to comment on or mention or talk about before we wrap things up?
I think we covered all the bases, but I just want to wish you well in 2023 and all your viewers. Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure being here. And keep sending us more cool pictures of what's happening in Turkey and all the delicious food you eat.
Absolutely. That's
and well, how long you been married now? What is it?
4 years. Just had
Are
our
there
4th
any
anniversary.
children planned anytime soon?
Sorry?
Any children planned?
Just spaceships.
That's the spirit. Yes. No kids, just ships.
It'll be a little while. We want to settle down. We're doing a lot of back and forth between Turkey and America, so we want to make sure we're a little more settled and financially stable before we do that. But
well, send my regards to Mrs. Tomato.
Thank you.
And wishing you the best.
And before you sign off, please let everybody know where they can find your own content.
Oh, so if you don't know, I am Montoya. I run the largest org in Star Citizens called Test Squadron. TestSquadron.com is our website, our forum there, or discord.gg/test. You want to drop by and say hello, you're more than welcome. And I hope to see you soon. Cool. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Yes, like and subscribe. Thank you again, Montoya, for joining me. And thank you, everybody.
Always a pleasure, Mr. Tomato.
Of course, for coming and checking this out. Supporters, thank you for sitting in live, chatting with us, asking us questions. If you guys would like to check this out live, if you're watching this on your on YouTube or listening on your favorite audio platform, consider supporting. It helps us a ton. It's the only income for our family, and it keeps this podcast ad-free. So we really appreciate that. I'd like to thank you all, though, so much for joining me for a whole 2022. It was an amazing year. We saw tons of growth and just really great things happen this year. I'm excited to go into the next year. We're going in strong. We are ready for a good year together, and a lot of exciting things I think are going to happen. So thanks again. I hope this was a good year for you. I wish you the best next year, or I guess this year, since this is going to be in 2023. And Montoya, thank you for joining me again.
Always a pleasure. Catch you next time.
I will see you all next week.